making sure your brand is strong and understanding it's not just your logo or your colors or anything like that. It's what people say about you when you're not around.
Ooh, that's awesome. It is. And it's like if people cannot say what you are, then it's lost, right? And
Hmm.
be able to explain what that credit union does and to provide a service that's memorable and valuable, you will be referable. Most people don't leave when things are obviously broken. They leave when everything looks fine and the relationships seem fine, the job seems fine, even their bank or credit union seem fine. And then one day, they're gone. Today's guest is Sarah Snell Cooke, founder of the Credit Union Connection and a trusted voice in the industry for nearly 3 decades, studying these exact patterns across thousands of real stories. You're a former publisher, a journalist, and you've had a front row seat to what actually builds trust, strengthens communities, and separates the credit unions people feel from the ones that they actually forget. And now you're serving as a credit union consultant with Cooke Consulting. So thank you and welcome to the show, Sarah. I'm super excited to dive into this.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
What?
And
Go ahead. Wait,
I was going
with
to say, you remind me almost 3 decades. I'm old.
no, it's so funny. My kids and like I'll go to school with my 5-year-old or my 11-year-old, and I look around. And I'm like, I'm older than those parents, and I feel my age. I'm like, oh my god, it happens like a flash.
Yep.
Somebody reminded us that our daughter will have her her business license. She'll have her driver's license in like 5 years. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yes,
Yep.
we're
I have
all
two
on there.
granddaughters.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
3 decades. There you go. You got it. Well,
Yikes.
you've had a front row seat in the credit union industry. Can you kind of explain to me, or can you dive into the history of the rise of credit unions and what they actually got right? Like, why is it that they've become so popular?
So, yeah, credit union history goes way, way back. They're technically founded about 100 years ago in the United States. Um, Edward Filene of Filene's Basement. I don't know if anybody heard of that shopping discount store. He was a billionaire. Well, I guess by today's standards anyway,
Mhm.
he would have been a billionaire. And he really truly believed in giving back to people. And so he helped to found credit unions because um, back in the 20s, when they were being formed, uh, the stock market crash happened, and none of the banks would touch the average consumer. So unless
Mhm.
you were super wealthy, you had no choice but to keep your money under a mattress, I guess.
Yeah, which could go up
So
in a fire or something like that.
yeah, yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. And so anyway, yeah, he and some others were integral in founding credit unions in the United States. The first one is actually still in operation. It's actually called St. Mary's Bank because the term credit union had not been coined yet. And then in 1934, I want to say, is when the Federal Credit Union Act was passed, and there were actually legitimate credit unions, federal insurance, well, eventually federal insurance and checking and all that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, they've helped not only people during the average consumer during the Depression, but also women couldn't get loans back in the 70s. There was a credit union founded to give women loans specifically for that purpose. And Martin Luther King was involved in founding a credit union through his church. And so to help the African Americans who
Yeah.
could not get banked. So yeah, it's changed the world. Credit unions changed the world and changed
Wow.
lives.
Well, and there, it's just been such a rise with them. We're in Washington State, and we have major credit unions like STCU, and now ICCU is coming in, and we have BECU, and then just like Rescue with law enforcement and with different departments, and there's just Numerica. There, you can name so many credit unions in our space, and they're just popping up left and right. What are they doing right that, let's say, a major banking institution is not doing? What are they capitalizing now that the banks aren't doing?
Okay, so I think there's a lot of things. First of all, in Washington State, it's a pretty liberal credit union regulatory scheme.
Mm.
And so that does help credit unions to grow larger and help get their brand known.
Mhm.
Um, and the credit union name BECU, the multi-billion-dollar credit union there, for example, whereas of the 40 couple hundred credit unions that are left, about 2,500 are below 100 million in assets. They're small. And so
So there's
they
big
don't have the
players within the
resources.
credit unions. There's big players within the credit unions, but then there's also the smaller players, the more community oriented and let's say smaller towns or districts, correct?
Well, I wouldn't say more community oriented. They're differently community oriented. I think it's a broader strokes
Mhm.
because credit unions were founded to help keep capital in the communities that they serve. And I mean, perfect example, BECU actually took in a credit union that was struggling, a smaller one, and leave it running as its own brand to because the members trusted that brand and they know I've heard their executives talk, they can't reach into these tiny little pocket communities that the smaller credit unions do. So I think, the issue for smaller credit unions in addition to resources is because this is their everyday, they don't see it as extraordinary. And there's so many stories that could be told to help build that brand. And I'm sure you asked for some.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just for example, there's one, I think it was in Tennessee. They serve soon to be released inmates, giving them financial education while they're still in prison. When they are released, they work with community organizations to help get them bus passes because transportation is a big issue where they are,
Mhm.
and they help to get them jobs. They told me the story of this one gentleman who he got out and all he wanted to do was buy a house for him and his mother. And, they helped him find a job at a t-shirt shop
Mhm.
and um, he ended up managing the shop eventually, and he was able to save with the credit union, save his money, and have a down payment for a house. And that's huge, not only because he got his American dream,
Yeah.
hopefully, but also the biggest issue with recidivism and crime is that you're going right back to the same environment you were in. So, credit unions change lives, 100%.
Oh, that is crazy because it is like a bank can offer me a bank loan and I can get a car loan or an auto loan, but it seems to me like credit unions for me were a better rate. There was
Mhm.
more the ability to make a real human connection with you're going into one of the credit unions and the people know your name behind the counter and it's a face that you can have a real connection with someone and they make you feel seen. And the flip side to me is like when I travel internationally, if I have Chase Bank or if I have Bank of America, it's like it's a more open environment. Like I can use my credit cards all over the place. But I believe that credit unions are now allowing that as well, like to be able to travel internationally, and there's not that much of a worry. So they're trying to catch up. Credit unions are trying to keep up with the banking institutions. What are they doing right now that is making banks worry, let's say, and then what are they doing wrong that they could do better?
So banks have always been worried about credit unions. At least their trade associations have. Credit, it may be a raison d'etre. I don't know, but
Yeah.
credit unions are not for profit and therefore not taxed at a federal income level. And the banks have been after that for probably 100 years, probably since they began.
Okay.
Um, and they're in fact in DC this week, in the Independent Community Bankers Association, lobbying to get credit unions taxed, to tax credit unions that buy banks, to like tax credit unions that offer business services. Just
To
they
make it a
just
more level playing field for everyone, right?
That's what they say. Don't
Yeah.
say that. But
Right.
it's 100. But the thing is, like I said, not for profit means their money is returned back to the members. Every member is an owner of that credit
Mhm.
union, and so instead of enriching stock shareholders, pardon me,
Yeah.
um, you're enriching the members. You're giving it back to the members who own you.
Well, and that is a big thing. That is the difference between the financial institutions and the credit unions is a member versus just a customer. And there's a
Mm.
difference with that technical term, right? Like it's very important to be considered a member with the credit unions. Can you kind of dive into that? Like how it's almost like working for Starbucks and they were like, oh, it's not a customer. It's like it's somebody who's coming to it. And it's like how you treat that person or their title or whatever is so much more important than not being. So as a member of credit unions, can you kind of dive into like what the difference is between the customer and a member?
So for members, like you were alluded to earlier, auto loans are one of credit union's bread and butter. They're able to offer better rates on those than pretty much any bank or credit union. I don't know. The last I looked at the difference between a bank and a credit union car loan average, it was I think it was around 100 basis points,
Mhm.
so a full percentage point. The credit unions also, as a member, is a feeling of belonging, which is not what you're going to find when you walk into one of the few remaining Bank of America branches
Mhm.
and wait 45 minutes to cash your grandmother's check, which I did, obviously.
Mhm.
But and so yeah, credit unions are all about the members. They're very involved, and banks are too. Community banks are too, involved in their communities. Credit unions offer financial education. They offer classes on how to get your first mortgage, how to buy your first car, just all kinds of things to help their members. Um, More as a whole human being. There's a credit union up in New Jersey, and it is a larger credit union, which many say are losing their community feel. But this credit union in New Jersey, they are all about whole person wellness, not just financial wellness. And so they call up and be like, "Hey, I know your grandmother has been sick." Those kind of calls that you're
It's the
not going to
small
get.
moment. No, it's
Yeah,
the small moments, and it's making a member experience memorable, and that's why I feel heard, seen, and valued when I walk into a credit union versus when I walk into any of the JP Morgan Chases or something like that. Like, I'm lucky if I know them. But you did mention that my local JP Morgan Chase, they might know me. But if I go over into Chicago, they're not going to know me, but at least
sure.
I can cash a check or add something to my deposit. So they're obviously doing something wrong. Why would someone not join a credit union?
I
There's a
think a
reason.
lot. Oh,
There's a
yeah, I
reason.
know. You would think they'd be silly not to.
Yeah.
um, some of the smaller ones do struggle with the technology, being able to afford the instant, frictionless kind of digital experience that, especially the Gen Z members are looking for. Plus, you have these fintechs that are amazing branders. They brand before they even have a product, really. SoFi, Chime, Dave, like all the ones that are going direct to consumer. And so I know my kids have complained about our credit, the one credit union we all have together, complained about their mobile app, but love their car loan rate.
Mhm.
Just the app wasn't great. So yeah, I think in part it is the digital experience, which credit unions are really. I think they're actually going to leapfrog from behind to right on top, if not a little bit ahead with AI. They're
Oh,
really looking into it, diving into it, and I think they look at as being a better return to the member if
yeah.
and to their employees. Honestly, if you've ever gone through a mortgage, I'm sure you see all those 300 pages. They have people going through that.
Yeah.
And if you have AI doing that, AI can tell, oh, this form, you're missing this piece of
Need for
information
signature.
or whatever. Yeah. And it's it can really make the process not only easier on the employee and the member, but also time, like the time you can get into your house sooner,
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
what I was going to say is that I think what works for me with the credit unions is that it is the real, it's not an illusion because every credit union that I belong to, they do know me and they do know my name. Now I'm an extrovert, so maybe that helps me a little bit, but they do care about me and they do understand like, hey, Blue, have you gotten your kids this? Hey, Blue, our rates went down a little bit. Have you gone in this? They care about me as a member. And I think that's like one of the biggest pros to it, plus a lower rate loan. And it
Hmm.
does make me feel like that. And so they've knocked it out of the park about making a real and human connection with me, with a member. But I agree that the fintech, the financial technology backing, it's lagging a little bit. like I want to be able to make an extra principal payment on my car. Well, I have to go in to do that, right? And so it's just one more hurdle that's making it a little less opportunity for me to be able to deal with that problem. But at the same time, they've knocked it out of the park about creating a member experience for me, and that goes a long way. And I think that if they can get on board with more fintech, or they can create an easier member experience with mobile apps or anything like that, that I think it's gonna make it that much easier. Is that what
Hmm.
the direction that you see that it's going? And then what does it take to do that? Does
Yeah,
it
one
take
of the, oh, go ahead.
does it just take investment, or does it take aligning yourself with certain brands, certain fintech brands that can help you and they can provide or solve a solution, and they say, you know what, of your 5,000 members, this will really help them?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So in my consulting work, I actually work with a fintech that helps credit unions to offer microloans and earned wage access. If you get your check 2 days earlier or what have you, and so that can be the difference between that member getting their car fixed so they can get to work the next day
Mhm.
and not. So those are the kind of partners that credit unions are growing. And in fact, there are a lot of things in exchange for the not-for-profit status and not being taxed on federal income. Um, Credit unions also have limited authorities in some ways. They cannot access the secondary market, or excuse me, the stock market, for example. Um, and so
They're missing out on that, right? They're missing out on the ability to grow or make a profit, which they're not in the business of, right? So
right,
it's almost like their hands are tied a little bit,
right.
but maybe they don't even need to get into that market, and they've obviously
Yeah.
done well enough without it.
So, and in exchange for that too, they have limited authorities, but they can form these credit union service organizations. They're called CUSOs. And these are where credit unions, and one of the cooperative principles is cooperation among cooperatives. So credit unions collaborate together
Mhm.
so that they can, for example, start a real estate titling firm. And that way they all share the expense and the profits from that, because the CUSOs can be for profit. And it's just like an investment. They invest in it and they get a return, a dividend on that. So that is one of the ways. And you're seeing some of the smaller fintechs that are working with financial institutions rather than competing with them, are actually becoming or spinning off a CUSO arm so
Mhm.
that they can get credit unions investment, and credit unions can actually directly have an imprint on what the technology is that's being created to make sure it's credit union friendly.
Oh, I love that. Okay,
Hmm.
because it is about the member experience, right? And it's about making sure that they come first rather than their profits. When you say like that they're coming together and they work well together, you obviously, credit unions have chapters and they have leagues and they have different associations. And so is that what you mean by everybody coming together and working together to rise the tide of the entire ocean? Like, let's all work together and maybe we offer a 0.001% better rate, but it's like, really it's about the customer or brand experience, the member experience that they're providing to people that makes them stand out above other people
Well, I
or other.
think the associations they're referring to, um, in at the national level, it's really about lobbying in DC. That's what all dues dollars go toward. There are other ev- um, events, educational opportunities, things like that that are self-supporting. So they charge to take the course. So that's really what the trade associations are for, both at the federal level, at the state level. It's also lobbying your state Congress for different things, or your state regulator for loosening this reg or tightening this one.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what the associations are for. But there are a lot of, like I said, these CUSOs. There's 1,500, I think I saw last, 1,500 CUSOs that are helping to serve credit unions, but some of them are owned exclusively by one credit union, and other credit unions use it, or they can be owned by multiple credit unions. For example, to have a fractional CFO, or that a CFO will work at this credit union, that credit union, that credit union, and not full time, and that way they can afford them.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so it's a collaboration, a partnership, and maybe a sponsorship within brands, and that you can help each other
Yep.
uh, within that, and just make a bigger difference or a bigger impact. And you had mentioned an imprint in the community. So that
Hmm.
sounds awesome. What I mean, you've obviously had decades of experience dealing with the credit unions. When you walk into a credit union and you have this member experience, what has really stood out for you that you're like, they get it, they understand it? And then when you consult with them, what do you say? You need to do this too.
So I was on the board of my credit union. The credit union board of directors is mostly unpaid volunteers from the membership to represent the members. And
Sounds like an HOA board.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so um, I saw a lot, I learned a lot from that experience about how credit unions function and how they decide um, what they're going to support and different things like that. Our board of directors was very conscientious every time we spent a single dollar of member money, because that's what your capital is, that you're going to put money out to invest in a technology or something like that. That's all the members' money. We need to make sure it's going to have the ROI we want for the member. And so that is one of the things I think that helps keep credit unions grounded. I think credit unions are also like that. I want I want to say Jimmy Stewart,
Mhm.
who ran his little community
Little home
bank,
bank. Yeah.
mutual bank. Yeah, I mean they're the 100-year organization. They aren't looking to the next quarter like for-profit organizations are, and so that's why they're doing well. I think they could certainly do better on like more of doing more storytelling, things like that, to get the word out about what they're doing, because some of them will say, oh, we're the best kept secret, and that just drives me insane. That is not a good thing to brag about.
Right. Well, and if you're not talking about yourself, you're not or showing your brand, your image, nobody will know about you. And
Yeah.
so, and that's obviously something that you dive into as a consultant with the credit unions. But some of them, like for example, SDCU has these signs, these billboards up, and they are funny, like legit
Mm,
funny. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who thought of that? Like that's so relevant and so applicable to everything. And so they are trying, certain brands are trying.
yeah.
What would you suggest to the smaller credit unions? Like, what can you do to stand out brand wise and image wise to get ahead so people do learn more about you and you're not the best kept secret?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things. One of the companies I used to consult was a credit union marketing company. So
Mhm.
I helped them market themselves to credit unions. And one of their clients was literally took dynamite in a their whole tagline is like, we don't put people in a box. And so they had this cardboard box, put dynamite in it, and the CEOs out there just blew it up. And they put it on Facebook and everything else and went viral. So I mean, it wasn't high quality video. It's probably from somebody's iPhone. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't worry about the quality in particular. You don't have to be well produced to have an impact. And that was obviously aligned with their brand. And I'm curious too, when you mention STCU, when you walk into a branch, do you get that same funny brand experience, or in their marketing pieces that you receive?
It's just, I honestly, it's like just any other member experience. They might know my name, or most of them do, just because I have 4 credit unions. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this loan, this,
I
but
have three.
I have 3. Okay, see, we're equal. That's fine. I think it's just walking in, but I went to elementary, junior high, and high school with the branch manager at STCU, and
Hmm.
because of the relationship that I had with him, that's a big shout out to Mark Norsada, that he is the reason that I joined STCU, right? But it was a connection. And it
Right.
was like, he cared about me, not whether or not there was a number. Oh, we have a new member, but it was like, it was this connection. So I do have that relationship there, but then I also have friends that, and speaking from the stage at different credit unions, it's like, everyone seems to make me feel heard, seen, and valued, and like I actually matter, whether or not
Hmm.
I'm walking into the doors or whether I'm asking for a car loan. And I feel lucky that I can do that for sure. So I do feel an experience. But I wouldn't go as far as to say like, I walk in and there's balloons flying all over the place at STC. Not a real connection, but man,
No.
their brand is they're funny, and I'm giving them total kudos for their signs.
Yeah, yeah. And that is the kind of thing that stands out. And for so long, financial institutions were afraid to not appear serious about their business, because people are serious about their
Oh,
money.
yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, they have a lot of feelings about their money. They're scared that they're not going to be able to make the next car payment. They're fearful that they'll lose their home. Or they're excited that they are going to be going to college and getting a student loan. There's a lot of feelings there, and being able to tap into those feelings, humor being one of them,
Mhm.
is absolutely one of the best ways to differentiate yourself. And that's a problem many credit unions have. I mean, I can't tell you how many first whatever credit unions there are, or how many blue logos there are out there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So being different, is definitely helps you differentiate yourself, visually. Now
Mhm.
you got to actually behave or align your member experience, or online and in the branch, with that brand, to
Sure, you
really stand out and support
can't
it.
offset your culture or your mission, right? Like, you can't just all of a sudden blow up everything with dynamite and say that you're not an explosive brand or something. It does have to sit with that. I was gonna say that we're gonna be right back after a word from our sponsor.
After a car accident, insurance companies will take every shot they can to leave you with nothing. But at Dubin Law, the game isn't over until you get the money you deserve. So call Dubin Law and add us to your roster today.
It does have to sit with that. I was going to say that one of the greatest things about a credit union to me is, for when I was a kid and I got my first bank account, it was at C First Bank. And I walked in and I was able to take my $12 like check from Christmas or something like that. And I handed and I started my own bank account, and I felt very empowered and I felt special. And I don't think that the major institutions make people feel like that. Whereas the credit unions really do that well. And I have two little kids, and they both have their bank accounts, and they both feel special when they walk in there. They feel like, I don't want to say an adult, but they do feel like they matter. And I think
Hmm.
they do a great job at that. They make it about a family legacy, about teaching the youth, or my kids, for example, how to be financially dependent on or independent, and being able to communicate about money, and like what you can do with money, and what that's having a better interest rate is going to do for you, or what having a good credit score is going to do for you. And it's like they're teachers, and
Hmm.
that really makes it stand out from one of the major financial banks.
Yeah, there was also, I mean, speaking of teachers, the Berenstain Bears, they partnered with Berenstain Bears to get a financial literacy book put together and out in the market. So,
Who was it?
getting
What credit?
the credit unions, there was a group of credit
Okay.
unions that did this,
Huh?
collaboratively. And so, yeah, that program's out there. There's also,
I think we have
some.
that book. I think so. I think so.
I got it from a credit union person somewhere along the way for my kids too, way
Mhm.
back. Um, so yeah, credit unions really are working to grab the attention, especially of younger members. Their average member age of a credit union is 53, which is not great. That said, there's also the baby boomers are a huge generation that
Mhm.
are pulling up that average. But I think where credit can really capitalize is this upcoming, or probably currently, the great wealth, transition from the elder parents to kids that inherit that money, and keeping that money within the credit union is going to be the challenge. And if credit unions handle that right, if they provide that belonging, if they assure they have the technology that, some millennial would want, then they might be able to hold on to that money and really advise the member about, their investments, but also just, um, try to deepen that relationship by adding a direct deposit, adding, a car loan, whatever it is,
Mhm.
to have more members using more offerings at the credit unions.
Well, and it makes it more user friendly, but then
Mm,
also like when you provide more tools or assets to people, people are more likely to do it. Like insurance, for example, if they bundle everything, I feel more loyal to a company that can do my home loan and my car loan or not car loan, but like your insurance, your car insurance, your landlord's insurance, all these things. It just makes
mhm,
it easier for me as the member experience, right? And so
mhm,
I think that if they do that and they continue making that real genuine connection with families and with the members themselves, that there's nothing holding them back. Uh,
mhm.
that's what I truly I see that direction going. But I do want to ask you, with leaders within the credit unions, because on your podcast you've had tons of people that have come on and you've gotten that front row seat with leaders of credit unions and within the industry. What is something that the leaders of credit unions now should be going, or what is a direction that you would advise them to go to create that better member experience?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think credit unions have always been known as fast followers, or even not fast followers.
Mhm,
Um, so I think being at the forefront of the technology, like I said, right now they spent a couple of years educating themselves on AI. Now they're using it in their credit unions to speed up certain processes, so they can make a mortgage in a week as opposed to a month, or
mhm,
they can offer completely automated microloans to members 24/7.
mhm,
So I think there are credit unions and that invest in these fintechs. As I was saying with the CUSOs, there's like 3 or 4 fintech accelerators within the credit union market, probably more, but those are the ones that are coming to mind right now. And they are investing in their not only money but time and teaching and to help make the technology better and
mhm.
for the member experience as well as on the back end for the employees that have to be able to function with it as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're making the job easier for them, right?
yeah.
It's a win-win. When you make your how can your customer, or excuse me, how can your people deliver an experience that they're not experiencing themselves? If they have anxiety or they're feeling stressed or they're overwhelmed or they feel like they're underperforming because their hands are tied, like if they can't deliver a great experience to the member if they're not feeling it themselves. So I think that that's kind of what you're tapping into.
Yeah, yeah, the member experience is more important than any loan rate at this point, I think. I know, you know, kids will I say kids, they're young adults
Mhm,
will, uh, they have a bigger trust factor, I guess, than
mhm,
we do about technology, um, because we grew up before we did all our stupid, scary things before Instagram.
mhm,
But yeah, so they're more open, I think, to digital banking exclusively. And
mhm,
so, like when you see Chime everywhere and SoFi, all they did, if you think about like SoFi when it first started, it was just student loans, but
mhm.
now it offers pretty much everything. Same thing, Chime and Dave and others are going that way. And so credit unions keeping on top of that technology, working with the fintechs that will work with them rather than compete with them is, I think, top priority for the credit union leaders today. I think also while you're modernizing the member experience, also keeping touch with your roots
Mm,
as far as that community feel that you're talking about. You know, yes, some will put their brand on, say, RFK Stadium in DC or
mhm,
outside DC. Um, or others will put their branding on the local high school football field
mhm,
or the community college. um, so I think it's all about perspective and keeping that cooperative spirit and member centric service first, and tying those to that with the technology are the two top things. And then I would say if there's the third would be making sure your brand is strong and understanding that it's not just your logo or your colors or anything like that.
mhm.
It's what people say about you when you're not around.
Ooh, that's awesome. It is. And it's like if people cannot say what you are, then it's lost, right?
Hmm.
And be able to explain what that credit union does and to provide a service that's memorable and valuable, you will be referable. And if it's so
Hmm.
simple to refer them, it just makes it that much easier. And that's what spreads like wildfire, or that's what makes
Hmm.
it viral like a dynamite going off, which sounds awesome, but we're not going to do it here in this thing. But okay, so you tapped in on a few different things that a leader could do to better the credit union experience for the member and for maybe his or her employees. What about for someone who wants to get into a credit union? What are a couple of things that you would say you need to join a credit union because you're missing out on these things? Like, what does a credit union offer to the member that stands out? Like, why are they not doing it? Can you give us 2 or 3 great reasons why they absolutely should join a credit union?
I would say absolutely join a credit union because, for example, when my husband and I were, again, 3 decades younger, um, we got we were stupid. We got in a little financial trouble. I wouldn't have made a loan to us, but our credit union did. They gave us a home equity loan to help consolidate all this revolving debt, and yeah, we were able to dig out of that because our credit union helped us, which is why I ended up serving on the board too, because they helped us out when I didn't. Like I said, nobody else was gonna. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I think there's that aspect of it. There's also, even if they have to say no to a loan, it's more of a not now. Let's work on steps A, B, C, and then you can get to where we can approve you. Just like that mortgage I mentioned earlier from the gentleman who was exiting the corrections system. They will help hold your hand to get to a better place. And it's not just about money, because again, money has all kinds of feelings attached to it, and we need to be aware of that rather than, especially at banks, treating members like another number. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Because they're not a number, they are a member. They're a human being who has a life and has value. And I think that that is something that makes a credit union stand out, is that they do offer that ability. But they took a chance on you and they gave you an opportunity, even if you didn't believe in yourself for a little bit, right? Love that you mentioned that it wasn't a right now sometimes, right? Like, you might get denied a loan. You go in for a mattress and you try to get a mattress on a credit card and they're like, "Oh, sorry, you don't qualify." It's like, "Oh, well, you're not walking out with a mattress," right? And so this applies to any industry. It's about saying possibly, like, it's not a no right now. It's maybe let's do these few steps. And then once you do those steps, and if you're willing to put the work in and do the work, then you get the loan, you get this opportunity. And that transfers to every industry and anything in life, because you're not always going to be told yes every time. You're not going to get these red or these green lights throughout life. You are going to hit barriers. You're going to be denied a loan. You're going to be denied a promotion or a job. And it's like, maybe just not right now. And it's that mindset. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, where credit unions offer that ability, especially the great ones, that they offer that teaching experience to them
Hmm.
members. They do want to hold your hand, because they are there to hold your hand. Because if they're holding your hand and you do well, then you
Hmm.
talk about them and you become referable.
Yeah. At the same time, my one credit union branch is primarily ITMs, which are intelligent tech, whatever, teller machines.
Mhm.
um, and you can actually dial a human being at the other end if you need it. But for me personally, honestly, even at my credit union that I was on the board of, I never went in the branch, so I don't think they even know who I was in the branch. But one of my other credit union, though, you walk in, and if you just want to do a simple transaction, you do it right there on the screen. And if there's something that's not functioning properly, you get somebody right away helping you, and that helps the credit union also save on people.
Yeah.
Human resources, of course, the biggest expense. And if you have a bunch of people in a office in Cleveland or whatever who are the video people on the other end,
Yeah.
they can handle multiple people almost at once, and so that helps them save on one of their biggest expenses.
Well, it funnels down the problem, and it funnels down the issue, and it gets you to the right person. But there's nothing more frustrating than getting on. You have to chat to a chat bot, and you're like, my experience, my problem is going to be different than everybody else's, and none of the things that dropped down were my problem. And it's like, it is helpful to know that there is somebody on the other line that you can reach right away, and there's nothing more
Mhm.
in that. And you mentioned the younger generation and the kids being able to do it. I love to go into a bank. I love to make a deposit. And it's something about the experience. It's about the connection. It's about having a conversation with the person across from me, and it's staying relevant within the spot. I just love it. And when COVID hit, my wife had already prepared me. She's like, "Why don't you do all your online deposits?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I want to go in and I want to go into the bank." And she's like, "Let's do it." But I'm telling you, because of fintech, because of the mobile apps, because of technology, I save so much time. And so I don't go into the bank
Mhm.
as often. I don't go into the credit unions as often. But when I do, to know that there's a person across from me that might know my name, might know my history and know my pain points and wants to help me and hold my hand, there's nothing better than that.
And they're also using AI to do that as well,
Mhm.
to get the data points, put that information up on the screen, actually making the interaction more human with AI. So, yeah, for sure. But the chatbots, oh, terrible.
And they never know my problem, right? Like, it's horrible. If credit unions were a personality or a character type, what would they be, and why do you think they would be like that?
Guardians were a personality. I sort I sort of want to say Steve Carell in the 40-Year Virgin, just because they seem innocent and naive,
Approachable.
maybe
Yeah.
sometimes approachable. Yeah. But certainly they are. Many of them have turned themselves around just as he he did,
Yeah.
and and plenty are following them. So yeah, it's a good thing that credit unions are moving forward with the technology and keeping that member experience intact.
Oh, I love that. From a, let's say it from a storytelling perspective, because you've been in the seat and in front of other people, like, why do some credit unions break through and they become the bigger credit unions and the smaller ones don't? Is it a leadership problem? Is it financing? Like, they just don't have enough members? Or what is it that takes you from a small community credit union to becoming one of the big players?
I think in part that's intentional to say smaller.
Which is a good thing
There
and a bad thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. It depends. But you can collaborate. There are larger credit unions that will give they may be replacing their laptops or their printers or whatever and give it to a smaller credit union that can't afford new stuff. So there's a lot of collaboration that helps those smaller ones. But the idea of storytelling.
Mhm.
I have a partner who actually built this storytelling assessment called the Story Score, and he assessed hundreds of credit unions, websites, marketing materials, stuff like that, and he found like 90% are not actual storytelling. There's no, there's,
Really? Okay.
yeah, which I was shocked. I mean, I kind of knew, but I was shocked it was that high. And the thing is that most credit unions mistake is not making the member the hero of your story, not making the member empower themselves with your tools. It's
Yeah.
always, we did this, we did that. And yeah, I that's what I tell my clients all the time too when I'm doing PR for them. It's like your brand, your story is a collection of all your clients' stories, and you need to make them put them first.
Oh my.
And putting the member first. I mean, I know there's some difficulties with getting model releases and things like that, but putting members in your stories, real members with real problems, and people can put themselves in those places. It's gold.
Well,
It's
and
gold.
it makes it relatable and
Yes.
approachable and referable, and it's like reachable. Like, I think you're hitting on something that's so important, and that is that it's like when you have that kind of experience and you give the we versus we did this for you, it really does make them feel valued and like they feel like they've mattered. And I kind of want to tap the brakes on that, because that kind of transitions into what I want to ask you next, which is basically like, if it sounds to me that you're hitting on something that could be improved. And if you had 5 minutes with every credit union CEO, like all in one room, what would you tell them that they're not understanding about trust and relevance and that member experience? Is it what you had just mentioned, that they are not able to put them as the hero?
I think that's definitely a big part of the storytelling issue, for the brands, for sure. Um, I also think consistency. If you have billboards out there that have a certain tone, then the branch materials should have the same tone. The electronic newsletter you send out monthly to your members should have the same tone. You should behave that way in the branch. If you want to be more casual and funny, just do it. I
Mhm.
mean, some people will be more receptive than others, but you got to read them. I mean, that's part of what frontline people do. I think another piece of it is, one thing I find problematic is that credit unions say their frontline staff are the most important people out there, and they are, because they are representing the brand to every member every day, all the time. At the same time, they pay them less than credit union or than bank tellers are paid. So getting your financial priorities aligned with your brand and with the story that comes out of that brand is really crucial. If you're going to be funny, be funny. you
Mhm.
know um because I mean, just look at the insurance company advertising for the last many years. I
Like
forget
with
who started,
Globe
Geico or
or
whatever,
like,
but like, yeah, State Farm does I can't remember the dude who plays the guy, but he's like dry, deadpan kind of humor.
mhm.
And then you've got the one with the cavemen, and and the one, there's a farmers, that was the other one. But yeah, you've got all these different funny brands
Mhm.
out there. Now, insurance, is that funny? No.
Mm,
No, it is not.
no.
It is incredibly dry and boring. At the same time, it's just the same as banking. And so taking a chance, taking a risk, um, doing something that makes you stand out and
Mhm.
differentiates you. One of the things that was huge during the government shutdown that just ended, yesterday,
Mhm.
is that the military credit unions were stepping up for the DHS people, for the Coast Guard members, for the civilian federal employees under DHS that were not getting paid for, I think it was 10 weeks,
Mhm.
um, offering them um, like shoot 0% loans to help put food on the table,
Mm.
all as well as moving the car loan payments back to the end,
Mhm.
like just adding on to the end rather than paying right now. Um,
Doing the
they're
They're
oh,
doing the
go
right thing.
Yeah, and that's how they can do it, because they know their niche.
Ah.
And these are some large credit unions too that are
Mhm.
doing this. There's one it's in multi. It's at least $1 billion credit union, which is large for credit unions. They immediately went into TSA and went into the airport and to TSA employees and signed them up if they weren't a member, or if they were already a member, share the offerings that they
Let
are
them know.
offering in this special time of need.
Yeah.
So credit unions tend to be more faster to respond and flexible, because they are so niche. Some serve airline employees,
Mhm.
some serve the military. There's one of the largest in the world, is Navy Federal Credit Union, that serves the all branches of the military and veterans. But yeah, there are so many credit unions, even when they're large, can really stay true to their membership because they understand them so well.
Mhm.
Because, like, the CEO at Navy at one point was an admiral in the Navy. So,
And in their
situations like
shoes.
that where they truly understand what the members are going through, and it doesn't matter your size.
Well, I love that. And you had mentioned something earlier about like when everyone is coming together and like the credit unions, it's not about it's about the we, and it's making them the hero. Because if you think about it, we all get to somewhere, wherever we are, whatever successes we reach, not because of ourselves, but because of the people that surrounded us, right? Like we are who we are because of all the people that have given us those experiences or that knowledge or those stories to make us better, right? None of us could do it alone. And I think that the credit unions do a really good job at that, about promoting the hero, the member, because they're there because of the members, not just because they put a flag up and they were like, here's this new bank. And so what I hear you saying is that they could do a better job of making them the hero, especially the credit unions that might be suffering or not gaining as much traction, but putting the member first and realizing that they aren't there because of them, but because of all of the members. And I think that's an important point to make.
Right. And the thing that many of these credit unions, they're doing it day in and day out. So they don't realize it is truly extraordinary. There's a credit union in Louisiana that serves, it serves a low income community, but it also has within that a cancer cluster from some of the runoff from industrial stuff. Anyway, they are working on a program with other community organizations and other credit unions to eliminate debt for those who are terminally ill with cancer. And so there's so many things that credit unions do that are amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Trying to eliminate debt when that is kind of counterintuitive to your business. Can you imagine a bank doing that?
Yeah. And not only to an individual, but like you mentioned, like to the community, to the city, to the state, whatever. It's like, it is about reaching out and making it a member experience and raising them up and giving them the chances and the opportunities. And they don't have their hands tied behind their back as much as some of the other banks, let's say, because they know their niche and they understand what shoes they wear, because and sometimes, just like the Navy Credit Union, that they've actually worn those shoes and they've been in that person's seat or they've worn those clothes. And so it's like, that just makes them stand out that much more and makes that member experience much more memorable and referable to people. And I love that you do that. And I'm assuming that that's one of the things that you talk about when you're consulting these credit unions is like how important it is to create that trust and that real genuine connection, and then to make it about the member.
Yeah. There's a lot of politics as any organization. There are a lot of politics, and what I think often happens is a marketing person who, one, they don't invest in marketing much at all, especially the smaller ones. Usually the CEO might even be doing it herself because there isn't anybody else to do it. And so I think investing in marketing is incredibly important. And, talking to the members, repeating those stories over and over and over, is critical, because we assume, as a journalist, as I discovered this early on, it was very humbling. When I was a journalist, we'd all be excited and try to compete to see who had the most views on our articles. Sure. And it is shocking. We had, back when I started, there were like 12,000 credit unions. And we would have like the biggest news in the country, like for credit unions in decades. And we sent out a bunch of, breaking news blasts, and 10,000 people read it, which was like extraordinary for us. But when you consider then there were 12,000 credit unions and probably 3+ executives on average, that wasn't a third of the credit unions that were even reading this decade blowing story. And so we got to repeat ourselves over and over and over and over and over and over for people to actually eventually get it. So yeah, that's the other thing too, is just being consistent and repetitive. Even it seems like to you, but some people it's the first time they're seeing it.
Yeah. Well, people always ask me, they're always like, you wrote a book? I'm like, yeah, like 5 years ago, I wrote a book. Like, where have you been? Right. But if I'm not talking about it, then people don't know about it. And so if you're not creating a member experience and you're not staying consistent with it and you're not keeping up with your message from what I've heard you say, then people aren't going to know about you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the easiest things that you can do is about being consistent and putting the time and effort and intent behind your message and staying true to that message and letting people know about it and knowing that you are there to hold their hand and to teach people the power of joining a credit union is just one of the greatest takeaways that I would say if I was a leader in a credit union right now, I'd be like, wow. And then how do you create a more memorable member experience for them? And there's so many ways of doing that, whether that is like you hold their hand or you teach them or you talk to the kids a certain way or you get out from behind the counter like Nordstrom does and greets the member. Like there's little things that you can do. You can call them and say, hey, you didn't make your car payment. Is everything okay? Hey, like reach out to people because you have those connections and you know your niche and you might know your members really well. So I think you hit a powerhouse of all different kinds of things that not only the leadership and CEOs are within the credit unions can start to apply and take advantage of, but then opening up our audience to the benefits of actually joining a credit union. Because in my experience in every credit union that I've worked with has been phenomenal. And they've always gone above and beyond for me and made me feel like I mattered and like I would remember creating that experience for me. I'm just saying, STC, you should have the balloons pop down all the time. And right.
It's like celebrating you.
Yes. Exactly. Celebrate it. So, well, I love that. And I think you brought a lot of valuable information to it. And I am so excited to see where the credit unions use fintech moving forward and how that they can create an easier experience for the members online and technology wise and bot wise and AI wise. But then to let us know that it's like, it's a constant evolve. They're constantly evolving and they're trying to keep up, but they might be a little slower, but the benefits do outweigh not ever joining one. And I love that. So thank you for being a part of this. Where can people find out more about you, your podcast, and then what you're up to?
Absolutely. So to check me out, Sarah Snell Cooke on LinkedIn. And for more about the Credit Union Connection, you can go to the longest URL in the world, thecreditunionconnection.com. Check it out. We do a lot of career education, career development, leadership development content for the leaders in the credit union movement, as well as helping them build brand. And we're providing educational opportunities. I get a little bit of this month, I'll give a little bit of what do you call it? A secret.
All right.
We are launching masterclasses, masterclass platform where credit union leaders who either can't afford or get the money from those on high to do certain types of training. We'll have that out there later this month. So I'm very excited about that. And because we want to be, there's plenty of news out there and we want to be more news analysis with a little sass is kind of how I put it.
Publishing background and with your journalism background, that just gives you that much more street credibility of being able to do that.
Absolutely. And then I also, like you mentioned, I consult with the financial services companies that serve credit unions. So, that's a lot of fun. I like working with small to mid-sized companies because then you can really like make a mark and really prove your value to them. So yeah, I got 2 businesses running now. We'll see what happens in the future. Maybe a third.
I'm excited for the direction that you're going. And I'm excited for the relationship that you and I have built because I will compliment you. I reached out to you and you were so giving with your time and your expertise within the credit union space and me as a public speaker and had the directions that I'm going within the financial industry and within the credit unions and basically high industries of trust. And we were brainstorming and you gave me so many ideas and connected me with so many different people. And I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a guest on here, but then being you and giving your value. And I appreciate you very, very much, Sarah. And I'm so glad that I met you.
Oh, thank you, Blue. I appreciate it. And I also just finished your book too.
Oh, that was a plug for the Sum of 4.
The Sum of 4, yes.
Oh, I love it. Good. No, I'm going to ask for a book review because I could use more of those. Love it.
Right here, right now?
No, online.
Oh, okay.
Those are people need to know I wrote a book. So Sarah, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day and best of luck to you. And I can't wait for this episode to drop.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. If this episode brings you value or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.